Welcome to From the Clinic to the Courtroom, Health Law Unpacked.
Hello and welcome to From the Clinic to the Courtroom, Health Law Unpacked with attorney Maria T. Santi, founder and managing partner of the health and medicine law firm. Maria and the team are focused on providing exceptional legal services with efficiency, accuracy, attention to detail, and high work ethic. I am your host, Kevin Rosenquist, and today's episode is the intersection of medicine and law, protecting patients in a legal framework. Maria, so good to have you here. Thanks for joining me.
No, of course. I'm happy to be here. Happy to talk about all these things today.
Yeah, well, so can you start by giving us a snapshot of your practice and the types of cases that you handle as a health and medicine law attorney?
Sure. So the majority of my cases, I focus on health insurance coverage denials. We do some patient rights issues where we help people that are either in substance abuse facilities or mental health facilities and the rights that they're entitled to there, some medical bill negotiation issues. But I would have to say that the majority is going to be health insurance coverage denials when patients are denied treatment or medications or anything that is dealing with any kind of medical treatment. That is the core of our practice.
What reasons do people typically get denied?
Generally, the climate, we've seen a lot of denials. So the majority of it, I would say, is medical necessity because it's the broadest that they can use to basically deny anything. So a lot of times you'll just say, oh, well, it's not medically necessary because X, Y, and Z. After a very specialized doctor has already said, no, this is medically necessary, the insurance company's medical director will go and say, well, you don't check our boxes. Another reason they might say is, oh, this is excluded under the policy, or it's experimental or investigational. Those are the three main reasons. There are many, there could be some other ones, but those are the three major ones. One thing I find is not many people know that they actually have these rights, that you don't have to stop at the appeals process. Like there's actually legal action that you can take.
Yeah, I will admit I didn't realize that. I mean, I'm not necessarily surprised to hear that we have those kind of rights, but I guess maybe I didn't know it. This is new for me, so I'm excited to continue talking about this. As one of the few lawyers specializing in this field, what inspired you to focus on health and medicine law, and why is it such a unique area of legal practice?
I'll try to keep it short because the answer is a little long.
Well, I am asking you to talk about your background. That's hard to make into a concise 20-minute podcast, but continue.
Yeah, so since I was little, I always wanted to be a pediatrician. And then I actually started working with a doctor and a pediatrician when I was in high school. Then ultimately, I went to college, started pre-med, but then I ended up getting married young and I had my first son when I was 19. So of course, my life path changed and everything just changed kind of to modify for my family. Ultimately, I ended up going through a divorce and then I switched my major again, and I decided to become a paralegal. And then that's where I got into the legal field. And then since I was a single mom with 3 boys at that time, I was like, well, I want to be a lawyer now. I don't just want to be a paralegal. Mm-hmm. So then I decided to go to law school. And it just so happened that the law school that I went to had a health law concentration program. And since I had always been interested in the medical field, and people, by the way, this is an important part of why I do what I do. Since I was a teenager to that point, I think I was like 26, my family and friends were always calling me, Maria, I got this medical bill. Maria, the insurance denied this, or they were always calling me. So that need was always still there. And even with my son, my grandmother was a big inspiration, like the denials, like I would always be fighting for everybody doing this. So when I get to law school, I start the health law concentration and I say, well, I can mix what I love most here, like health and the law. So I did the health law concentration. And then ultimately after law school, I worked at an insurance defense firm for 2.5 years. Got a lot of good experience, but ultimately my heart guided me in the direction that I wanted to go, which was to open my firm to help people in situations where they were getting denied healthcare. And I guess the big push for that when I was a lawyer was my grandma. She was like in her 80s at the time, and she needed a special eye surgery. And they wanted to send her to a facility that was not equipped with the proper equipment. And then I fought and fought and fought for her. And she basically was like, well, why don't you do this? Like, you should go and help these people. How did you do this? Like, she was just so surprised that I was able to do this for her. She felt it was magical. And then I guess just her telling me all that made me realize, wow, there are so many people out there that don't have a voice and need this help. And that's really where I said, you know what, I'm just going to go and, follow my heart and jump and do this to see, to help as many people as I can. So that's why I'm here.
Wow. That's a really inspiring story. It honestly is. I think that's very, very cool. And you're a glutton for punishment. 3 boys as a single mother and putting yourself through law school?
Yes.
Okay.
But I do have to admit, I had a very supportive family, and their dad is a great dad. So I had great support.
Okay, that's good to hear. I have one boy. I have a wife, and I'm not going to law school, and it's still hard. So I kudos to you.
Thank you.
Patients' rights are obviously a key focus in your practice. Can you explain some of the most important rights that patients have under the law, especially in terms of like privacy, consent, medical decision making, that sort of thing?
Well, one thing as far as the medical field is concerned, I guess when you say privacy, we all know that there's the HIPAA law. So people know that, yes, your information is supposed to be private, but one of the things, even though you have those rights, you can't necessarily take legal actions. You can file complaints with administrative agencies, with government agencies, to see if they would penalize any agency that violates the HIPAA laws. That's something that can be done. As far as other rights, I think the rights that I was speaking of earlier with the insurance coverage, like a lot of people don't know that when something is denied, yes, your doctor usually appeals it, but you have the right then to continue the appeals, and then you have a right to legal action in many cases to try to get the issues resolved. And so other patient rights that come up a lot are rights to medical records and rights to amend records. Those are things that some people ask about a lot, or just don't know that they have the right to amend records when they think those records may be incorrect. And another big thing is informed consent, which I don't think gets a lot of attention. I know that we've seen some cases where families are fighting the government when they want to take someone off life support. So that's like an extreme example. But under that, we have the informed consent part of it is every patient has a right to ask questions and decide whether or not the treatment that the doctor is recommending is actually right for you as the patient. So I feel like that's one of the rights that kind of gets overlooked these days, that many patients, we're just saying, okay, whatever you say, doc. But really, you should be informed of all the options you have available and then say, is this right for me or not right for me?
It's interesting. It feels like this is a very highly specialized field, and it seems like there's not a ton of attorneys that focus on it. Why do you think that is, and what makes this area of law so complex?
Well, I think mainly it is because exactly what you said, it's a complex area of law. So you have laws at the administrative level, you have laws at the state level, you have laws at the federal level. So you're really dealing with all these different levels of law. You're not just always in one section. And then when you have to analyze a case, it's not just, hey, it's 4 things you need to look at. No, you need to look at 10 things and you need to do a complete assessment. So I'll give you an example. If, let's say, somebody gets denied health insurance coverage for a procedure, now you have to find out, well, it's not just health insurance, right? Like they might have Medicaid, they might have Medicare, they might have an employer health insurance plan, might have a short-term plan, they might have a marketplace plan. So all of that, when you look at that, everything has different laws that apply. So it's not just as straightforward. So you have to make the effort to look into it and actually know what you're talking about. And also you're dealing with people that are going through tough times sometimes, and you really have to have a lot of patience. It's not just a black and white. Like you need to be a human being and you need to listen and show a lot of compassion a lot of times.
Yeah, I would think so. Compassion, empathy, like there's just a lot that goes along with something like this, because it's such a lot of times very kind of momentous part of someone's life when they're dealing with something like this.
Yes.
Yeah. You work on cases that are critical to patients' health and well-being, obviously. Given the constantly evolving nature of healthcare laws and regulations, I mean, how do you stay updated and ensure you're providing the best legal advice for patients and healthcare providers? I mean, I feel like healthcare is always in the news and there's always things that are kind of moving within it. Is it tough to kind of stay up to date?
Well, yes, that's definitely something that is true. It is constantly changing. I think the best way to stay up to date, I mean, it's not with what the technology we have, it's not always too difficult. It's just a little, it could be challenging, and it's just something that could become burdensome. But if you're like me that loves the challenge and loves learning new things, I thrive in that. So I guess that's another reason why I do what I do. You know, I love that. So I'm subscribed to like every single health law newsletter that you can think of. So I'm constantly reading articles. I get federal law updates. I have my Westlaw that I can research whatever I need to research. So it's, you know, I get updates on everything as it comes, and whatever is relevant to whatever I'm working on, then obviously I'm going to read a little more into that as opposed to something that I'm not directly working on.
Yeah, I wonder if could that be another reason why it's sort of there's less people in it, because of the fact that you have to really stay on top of what's happening in the world of healthcare?
I mean, it could be, yes, but it's also challenging to bring any legal action, because you're not going to just get a client and file a case in 5 minutes. You really have to take a few days, sometimes, or weeks even, to get all the information you need. Yeah,
that makes sense. Do you have an example of challenging or memorable case you worked on and that may have stood out to you?
So there have been, honestly, so many, because I've had to go to court to get an injunction to stop an insurance company from denying cancer treatment. That's actually the world we live in. I've had to do that a few times.
Oh my gosh.
But I think I would say the most memorable for me has to do with a little girl that had not turned 2 yet. And I was working on getting her basically a life-saving medication. It was for a genetic condition, and it was a new medication. So it was about $2 million, pretty expensive. But the whole thing is that this medication would make the difference of her being able to thrive and even walk in her life versus not being able to. So it was like I was so compelled to help this family, because I would truly be making a difference forever in her life. And it was just like I was able to get that, you know, to resolve the issues and get them that medication. And now she's thriving and doing really well. And just the appreciation that I got from the family and the contribution I feel that I made, just one human being, that I changed her life in that way, to this day, like I will never forget that.
That's really cool. Do you ever work, with the healthcare providers, or are you pretty much constantly battling them?
No. So I usually work with healthcare providers. I represent some when they're underpaid by health insurance as well. I focus a lot primarily on the patient side, but I do help some doctors when they're underpaid. But I typically work with them because when I am working on the patient cases and we need to get a treatment approved, like let's say it's a back surgery, and the lady or the patient has been waiting for over 2 years, I need to work directly with the doctor to say, well, does she still need the treatment? Why does she need the treatment? And then it's a lot of collaboration with physicians in all of these cases.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't go against doctors. Like I don't do malpractice. That's not my area, because I need to work with the doctors as a team.
Yeah, you need them on your side.
Yes.
Yeah. Is it getting worse as far as the insurance companies denying care since you started this? Is it getting better? Is it kind of the same? Where do you land on that?
I think it's unfortunately not getting better. I think it's actually gotten worse. And I'm sure you've seen the AI issues surrounding health insurance, that they're just pushing a button and denying hundreds of claims, not even giving any meaningful review. So I have seen a lot of that. And I do see it getting worse as far as the denials, because they don't review claims as much. So now patients are caught in the middle when all they need is to get better. I hear a lot from doctors as well that they're just getting constant denials, and they're overburdened by all these appeals and pre-authorization requests. And it's just, if you go just on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, you're going to see an uproar from doctors about all these pre-authorization issues. So it's definitely something that has not improved.
Yeah, and it's frustrating for all of us, because we pay. I mean, I pay a lot of money for health insurance, and they're supposed to have my back, and if they don't, that's pretty frustrating. And by the way, I pay a lot of money for very, very, very bad coverage, for like really low coverage, and it's frustrating for everybody. And it's got to be even more frustrating for you, seeing all the things that you see.
Yes, it's especially frustrating when it has to do with life-saving treatment.
Right.
It is. I just don't get it. I don't understand it from the human perspective.
Right.
I just don't understand like how they can do that and how they can be continuing to do that and pay attorneys more than treatment is worth sometimes to keep denying. So that's something as a human, I will never understand.
I'm with you. We could talk all day about how messed up our
Yeah.
healthcare system is, but that might be stories for another podcast. We'll start another one.
Yes. Yes.
All right. Well, thank you for tuning in to From the Clinic to the Courtroom, Health Law Unpacked with Maria T. Santi. To connect with Maria and the team, head to healthandmedicinelawfirm.com and give us a like, give us a subscribe. We always appreciate that. Maria, I appreciate your time. I'm so excited to continue talking about this field with you.
Same.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.